And again, that is where we're at this point, trying to make really sound and solid decisions based on the information we have from Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, the Governor's Office, Department of Health, and our local Snohomish County Health District, working with our school board to make decisions about how that will work here locally in Monroe, and then continuing to adjust to those pretty moving targets as we continue to enter. As a parent, I can imagine how frustrating that has been on your end at times, where we've communicated things and then those facts or those details that we've communicated shift. And I would just suggest that is not our intention. That is us responding to the changing landscape that we're dealing with. I have a lot of guests with me here, a lot of staff with me here that's going to help with our presentation today. And I'm going to start. We have an order with them, and I'm going to start with our Chief Academic Officer and let Kim introduce herself. And then we'll follow through, and I'll talk about the agenda that we have today. So again, thank you very much. I'm looking at the ticker next to our screen, and over 450 people. So we appreciate you being here. We hope to address a lot of the questions that are common questions, and we'll talk again about the format. Kim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Kim Whitworth, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer here in the Monroe School District.
And I'm David Parator. I'm the Chief Student Services Officer, and I support our students who are on IEPs, as well as our students with 504 plans, as well as health services, and also support highly capable programming.
Good evening, Brett Willey, Monroe High School Principal. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Hi, Jeanette Seamers. I am one of 3 assistant principals at Monroe High School, and I'm just grateful for this opportunity to get connected with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan Judy. I'm the principal out at Hidden River Middle School, and I'm just kind of speaking, representing the middle school voice tonight. I'll do the best I can to speak for Park Place as much as I can, as we work pretty closely together. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Penrod. I'm the principal at Salem Woods Elementary, and I'm here as part of our elementary admin team.
And hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm Jeff Presley, principal at Frylands Elementary, starting my 28th year in the district. We're looking forward to a great year. I'll turn things back over to Dr. Blasco.
So as you can see, we've assembled a panel. The agenda for this evening, we're going to talk about, I'm going to give a broad overview of the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, the requirements that we have going into the 2021 school year, which are different than how we ended the 1920 school year. Then we're going to move on, and David Parator is going to talk to us about student services and special education. We're then going to move into the overview of schools and schedules for distance learning. Again, we'll hear from our principals. We'll hear from the high school with Brett. Jonathan will represent the middle level, and then we have our 2 of our elementary principals, Stephanie and Jeff, who will talk about the schedule and provide a little more details than probably were apparent in our written documentation of that. We're going to talk then, we're going to have our Chief Academic Officer is going to talk about the Monroe School District Virtual Learning Academy program overview. We've sent some information on that previously. That will talk about what's going to the school board for potential approval on Monday's school board meeting, as we've selected a virtual academy or a virtual service that we'll be able to provide our students for those of you that choose 100% online. So I'm going to start off and begin by talking about the overview of our Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. We call that OSPI. OSPI, we are mandated this year to uphold the State Board of Education's criterion for hours and days. So as a school system, we are required to have 1,027 hours average across our school system. So between our elementary schedules, our middle level schedules, and our high school schedules, the average in 180 days needs to be an average of 1,027 hours of instruction that we need to verify. The school board approves and verifies that we provide that to our students, and we verify that to OSPI annually. So as you heard me say, not only is there an hour requirement for the 1,027, but there's also a days requirement, which is the 180 days. We believe and are confident that the schedules that have been presented and communicated out meet those requirements of both the hours and the days. What that doesn't mean, and you're going to hear all levels talk about this, is that students will be in front of screens that entire 1,027 hours. That is not accurate. That is not the intent of our programming, not the intent of our schedules. Again, you'll hear more details from our panel as they describe in more detail the schedules that have been presented and are planned. I would note just in this initial introduction, as with anything in education, we plan the best we can with the things that are in front of us. And we have a saying in public education that was developed by Madeline Hunter a long time ago in educational research called monitor and adjust. And so we very much intend to monitor the effectiveness of our current thinking with our plans and adjust those plans when we determine that what we thought was going to work with that plan doesn't necessarily meet what we thought our expectations were for our students. And again, for all of you tuned in this evening, we also want to say that we're also going to work with individual families on their circumstances, on your circumstances. We've had that conversation with our building administrators and our central office, and we know that in these times, flexibility is going to be key for all of us. A couple of other items that are different than the spring. Daily attendance will be taken. We have a number of strategies for that, including our Skyward system for the students that are able to engage with us as the schedule is dictated and aligned now. And in addition to that, because we'll be using Canvas, learning management system, Canvas, we'll also be able to tell when students are logged into Canvas and are engaging in the instructional activities on Canvas. So we will have a couple of ways to demonstrate that our students are engaged in the educational process specific to currently our online model and hopefully our hybrid model, and potentially, we can all cross our fingers for this, 100% back to school if we're able to get to that point and have that guidance from our health departments. Grading is also something that has shifted away from the way that we ended in the spring, and we are returning back to what we're calling normal grading. So at the elementary level, those are the scale of 4. At the middle level in high school, those are A's, B's, C's, D's through F's. And so that will be back to normal grading. Within that, I would offer that there are going to be some updates and specificity provided around grading, especially as we think about how these program shifts have taken place over the last few weeks of planning. And so there will be specific information provided by your teachers, provided by your schools, as we continue forward into this learning and teaching in this COVID situation. At this time, we're going to transition to David Parator. Again, David's going to talk to us about special education, and we will continue through the topics as we've outlined. And again, thank you for joining us. It looks like we are about 528 attendees, so that is fantastic. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Dr. Blasco, and thank you all for joining us tonight. So I want to take just a few minutes tonight just to go over some of the different highlights for our plans for students on IEPs for September. I sent out additional guidance to all of our families who have students on IEPs earlier this week. The challenge with doing an overall special education guidance to families is each of your students have individual needs, and the programming considerations for each student is different. So even though these are general guidelines, we'll be working with our IEP teams to really give specific direction for each of your students. We have over 800 students who are on IEPs in the district, so we will have essentially 800 different plans, but all following the same overall guidelines. The thing to remember first with all of our students on IEPs is our students with disabilities are general education students first. And so they will continue to have access and be able to participate in all the distance learning opportunities that are provided within the general education setting. That said, the majority of our students with IEPs will open the year in the distance learning environment, where in addition to the access to general education opportunities, they will receive all the services identified in their IEPs. An important change from March to June, when we first went into closure in spring, is the expectations for implementation of IEPs from OSPI as well as from myself has greatly increased. So you can expect that each goal area that is identified on your student's IEP, as well as every service area, will be implemented in the fall, regardless if they are participating remotely or in person. And so, for example, if your student receives services in the area of reading, speech, and occupational therapy, they will get services in all of those areas. Our staff is coming back next week and we will be going over the different guidances for them, but they will be looking at each of your students' IEPs and determining the best recommended plan for your child. That information will be communicated to you through what's called a prior written notice, which is our agreement and our commitment to you as far as what will be provided. For those students who there does need to be a change to the IEP because of the learning format, there will be IEP amendments to indicate if a service area is not being addressed for a particular reason. There shouldn't be very many of those, but there will be some at the high school level due to the change in their schedule and some of those considerations, which Mr. Willie will be discussing. We also know that a lot of our students in March through June were not able to access the remote learning opportunities successfully. So for some students, we will be providing in-person learning. Our IEP teams will be going through a process where they'll be examining your children's data from March through June, as well as examining their IEPs to really examine March through June, were your kids able to engage instruction through technology? They'll also be looking at their engagement level in the online learning format. Additionally, they'll be looking to see what areas of service might be on an IEP that cannot be addressed remotely. And for those students, we will be bringing some small group and individual students into our buildings to receive in-person services. I think the frustrating thing to note, and I know it causes frustrations in families and it causes frustrations for myself as well, is we know all of your students learn best in person. However, in-person services will be limited to small groups of students, and you could expect in collaboration with your IEP teams to be part of that discussion to determine what learning format is best going to be suited for your children. And I wish we could communicate the information as far as what your child's specific plan will look like, but we really want our IEP teams and our teachers and our specialists to have time in the next couple of weeks to examine that data, to look at what options are available and determine, number one, are your children able to access the learning remotely? And if so, what is that going to look like? If not, what is going to be the in-person learning recommendations for your students? For those students who do come into the buildings for in-person services, they'll be receiving program services. It will not equate to the full 6 hours of in-person learning that would be if we were not in if we were in a typical format. For those students that are able to come into the buildings for in-person services, transportation will be provided. And so you can count on that for the ability for kids to access those programs. Students will be limited to the number of students that we can serve based off of our health department's guidance as far as number of students that can be included in groups. Some of the students that we are looking at as far as really having an understanding from March through June that struggled with some learning opportunities, included some of our youngest learners in our developmental preschool programs. So we're looking at options for being able to bring those students back in person, as well as some of our kids who have oftentimes more multiple disabilities or disabilities that really affect their ability to access remotely. So you could expect to be having those conversations with your kids' IEP case managers in the next couple of weeks. It's my commitment to you for us to be able to make sure that all of our students are able to have a high quality education and quality special education services to meet their learning needs. Finally, just want to address during the initial closure from March to June, a lot of IEPs and evaluations needed to be postponed because we were in that remote modality, and parents either elected not to want to have that IEP meeting remotely, or we weren't able to do those assessments because of the lack of ability to do in-person assessments. It is our requirement within 30 school days from the beginning of school year to have all of those IEPs that are out of date, to have those IEP team meetings with you, as well as all open or expired evaluations or reevaluations that weren't able to be completed will be completed within those first 30 school days. And that will include some in-person assessments for those assessments that we're not able to complete remotely. The last thing, a couple things that I'd like to address before I pass on the baton here is for our students that do come into the building, they will be required to follow the strict safety precautions such as wearing face coverings, maintaining social distancing, as well as daily health checks to make sure that they are healthy to come into the buildings. And those health checks are also required of our staff. So you can count on if your kids are coming into the school setting, we're going to provide a learning environment that is as safe as possible for them. One other consideration, I know with the three options that you were giving on the program choice option, the second option, which is for the Monroe Virtual Academy option, where students are participating 100% online. It's important to know that for those students, if you elect that option, they're still a Monroe School District student. And so we will provide IEP services for those students. So, so please consider that in going over your, in your final considerations for what your program options are. I'm going to end my time here, and I'm going to pass the information on to Stephanie Penrod and Jeff Presley, who will talk about the elementary areas. And I see Justin wants to say something real quick.
Yeah, I apologize. In our little start there, one of the things that I forgot to mention or neglected to mention is we are collecting questions. We're hopeful that some of the questions, and we see that some of the questions that are coming in should be addressed in the presentation. If you if your question is not addressed, we're grouping those. We're saving time at the end to take some themed questions. So the ones that we are getting the most of, and we're going to address those at the end. We have a good panel here, so hopefully we'll be able to cover those. Those that are not covered tonight in our hour schedule, we are going to add those to our existing FAQ page, and we're going to continue to work on communicating that out. So just wanted to mention that we are collecting questions. I have my great communication staff is on the side working through those and making sure that they're thematically grouping those. And if we don't get to the question again tonight, we will address those in other ways through our website. So Jeff and Stephanie now to review the elementary schedule. Thank you.
Yes, and Keith, could you let me share my screen so that the schedule can be up? We want to talk through, we used a lot of input from our teachers' experience as we were getting ready to do that. And, sorry, I'm trying to talk and share. I hope that worked. Thanks, Jeff. So we used a lot of input from our students, from our families, and from our teachers as we thought through what would be responsive. And one of the things that lots of kids and teachers missed was the opportunity to socially connect in the morning. So you'll notice at the very beginning of our schedule each day, we have a morning meeting, which is an opportunity for kids to see each other, see their teacher, do some connection, as well as give us an opportunity to do some of those literacy activities from our curriculum that build relationship and build learning, like our read aloud or some of those discussion type lessons. The second part of our schedule that says from 9:45 to 12 has in it flexibility as well as opportunities for small group instruction. So what you will see is we are streamlining a lot of what we did in Canvas this year so that it will be really more intuitive for kids, and they'll have access to videos and or small group time across the week. So while it says live instruction, that's talking about opportunities, and each child will not be sitting in front of the computer for that whole time. There will also be flexibility in that so that you can work with your child on your schedule. And if today we do math first, that's still fine. We can do reading, and your classroom teacher will let you know where the schedules are for those small group opportunities. We are also really excited. We had a great professional development today that allowed our teachers to dig into the literacy curriculum that we started using last year and getting additional resources and ideas for how we can make that come alive for our students while we're remote and all the way through to when we get to be back in person. We're doing the same next week around math to really look at how we can use what we were learning about Eureka last year to really engage with kids through discussion and through resources that are both online or offline, and give some flexibility with that.
All right, so what Stephanie talked about in the morning, it talked about live instruction, but we know that we do not want our kids on computers, on screens for a whole day. We know that learning happens away from the screen. We know that learning happens with discussions. It happens with small groups. It happens with feedback from teachers and other peers, and even from family at home. So as we start this distance learning, you can see the afternoon schedule is flexible in its approach, but yet it also has a schedule that families could follow in order to have those things that we want our kids still to be able to access. For example, specialists. The Canvas pages that we're going to have this year are streamlined and much easier for everyone to navigate. They also are set up by grades, grade levels. So if you're a fifth grade, you have a fifth grade student or a first grade student, the Canvas pages are going to look similar for families so that you can help your kids access. So you see a specialist time for music, PE, and digital learning. You see iReady for about 20 minutes per day during the week. They don't have to happen at those times if that is not a time that works for you or your student. A big thing that we want to make sure is we want to move to students being more engaged in the learning. We know that in the spring, we had either students disengaged or participating, but we want to move from participation to actually driving more of their learning. And so we've tried to bring in some things that make things more meaningful and relevant for them. So you see some choice activities that kids have, that's science, typing. We plan on having clubs that teachers will be running and having a few times a week. We have Genius Hour where kids can decide and pick things that they want to be experts on, that they want to learn more about. So you'll see in that choice activity time, there's time there for kids to be able to actually drive a lot of their own learning. And then with flexible access time, that's really about additional interventions. We will have small group in the morning for obviously the core instruction of reading, writing, and math, but you can see how it floats into the afternoon. Small group instruction as well for our English learners, our special education students like David talked about with student services, and then also our students in our LAP programs to get language assistance for reading, writing, and even sometimes math. And so you can also see office hours on there for teachers, that's when you can be able to access teachers and ask more questions, whether that's as a parent or you want to get on with your child. You can also see towards the end of the day, twice a week, where we have family contact time. Again, other ways to be able to reach staff. And then 3 times a week, we've got that share out time. It's a time to celebrate questions and answers, kids being able to share what they're learning with their peers as well as their teacher. And what we really want you to know is this schedule that we have here is set up to try and provide the best access for your student to have some online instruction with their teacher, some online that's not live, and then of course some that's offline where they're independently practicing or working with people at their home, or like we talked about, some students being able to come in to the building with all of our health and safety precautions in place. I want you to know too that we're here for you to help you and guide you with any questions that you have, whether it's tonight or tomorrow, whenever you think about it. I know we've got a survey out for you, but we just want you to know that as you choose these things for your family, which option you're going to do, just know that we are going to be working with you, and realize that families have different schedules, and we want to make sure that we are flexible to your schedule and responsive to kids for their learning and responsive to you as parents in accessing education for your child. So I'm going to turn things over now to Jonathan, and he's going to talk about the middle level.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Thanks, you guys. So sorry about that. Thanks, Jeff. Before I get started, one of the questions that I wanted to kind of include you all in tonight that we frequently ask out at Hidden River is how do we build the school that we'd be proud to send our own kids to? And that was really echoed, I think, in some of Jeff's closing comments there, and just this sentiment and this commitment to and desire to really serve and meet the needs of all of our students and all of you as families. And so it really was with that in mind that as our middle school, our middle level schools, we got together, and that was part of our lens that we were looking through as in our planning, is how do we create enough structure within the schedule that it provides clarity and yet enough flexibility that we're walking that fine line, and it provides the access to many different families and many different students in the different situations that you all find yourselves in. So I just want to emphasize before I kind of dive into the life of a student over the course of a day, or actually I'll kind of go over 2 days just with the way that we've organized our schedule to get through the entire schedule. But that's the primary principle that we were striving for, is that sense of structure and flexibility. We know that regardless of what the schedule looks like, we have to, number one, make connections with kids. And so there's opportunities within the schedule to do that, but a lot of that has to do with the skills that we're teaching kids, the motivators that we're providing them, the sense of challenge and the sense of independence that we're giving them, particularly at the middle level of development for them. And so I want you to kind of know, as regardless of what the schedule is, we're committed to teaching kids how to navigate that schedule, and to partnering with you and partnering with our students to really build the skills with them and in them that allows them to navigate a week in the life of a middle schooler. So you can see on our schedule, just I'll stay a little bit high level and not go into super detail, but you can see that our schedule will get through a full 6 class periods over the course of 2 days. So we'll have half of our classes on Monday, half of our classes on Tuesday. The exact classes differ depending on the school, but that's the way that this schedule is designed. And you'll see in both middle school models that there's designated time for that connection with students, time for building community amongst students, but also those skills around how do I navigate some of the things that I'm dealing with at school. What sort of self-care habits can I set up for myself to be successful? And so both schools are developing plans and working with our teacher teams to identify what those skills are and provide that our communities. The class periods really involve a combination of two things. Our goal is to provide a well-balanced instructional model. We know that our time on Zoom and in live class meetings in that way, that's time to collaborate. That's time to interact with each other. We're facing obviously a time where people are more and more isolated. And so we want to maximize the time that we have with your kids. And so that's why that instructional video is kind of called out there, as that's one of those things that will be provided ahead of time that kids can access going into the class period. For those that didn't watch it, they can watch it right at the beginning. The design is really to be about no more than 10 minutes in terms of the instructions, just those quick talking points, sort of that, what do you need to know in order to be prepared to come in and have conversations and small group discussion and some of the more interactive pieces that we want to be doing during our Zoom times. During the second half of the day, if I am a sixth grader on Monday at Hidden River, I'll go through my first period, my third period, and fifth period in the way that I just described. I'll get a chance for a lunch break, and then we're really going to be working with our students on staying dedicated to individualized lessons for reading and math in our iReady system. And you can see the time is blocked out there, but anything in green is time that students could really do whenever. But our recommendation would be, if you need to rely on the structure, to rely on the structure that's provided. Our independent practice time would be targeted and correlated with the class periods that students went to in the morning. So there will be some specific tasks. Like I mentioned earlier, we know that we're going to have to teach kids how do you use that independent practice time so that it's effective. What's a routine that you can set up for yourself? One specific example of something that we'll be teaching our kids, I know at both middle schools, is when you get to the end of that independent practice time, what kind of self-check can you do on what you understand and what you don't understand? Because that might be something you want to carry into that last hour of the day, which is called the flexible access time, which is time, again, correlated with the classes they had that day, for students to then go back and access their teachers for specific questions they may have. And that also is a time where students may be called in for some of that additional small group support as well. So, and then kind of repeat the process on Tuesday to get through that second half of your schedule. One of the things I want to touch on before I pass the mic over to our high school representatives is our teachers and our teacher teams, I want you to know, are so invested in this idea that this is an amazing opportunity to partner with your kids, right? Kind of what I've indicated already, that idea that we know that we have to teach kids these skills and how to navigate them. We really see that as an opportunity to partner with them, to build a sense of celebration around the growth that kids are making, to figure out, are there ways that certain grade levels can challenge other grade levels in terms of their iReady, and sort of build this culture of celebration and almost competition between large groups of students, so especially at middle school. That's something kids can get bought into. So we're thinking as creatively as we can about ways to not only put the schedule out there, but to deeply engage your kids and give them a sense of belonging here at Hidden River. One of the ways that we do that is our teacher teams are highly focused on identifying what are the most relevant and essential skills that our students need to know. And you may have heard that phrase, essential skills, and essentially what that means to us is it's skills that students can take and translate, generalize across courses currently that they're taking. It's skills that they absolutely need. They're absolutely critical and foundational to build on for the next level. And so while we are teaching to the Washington State Common Core standards, we know that there are a few critical skills that students absolutely have to have. And that's how our teams are organizing around what are the best ways to give kids the opportunity to develop those skills, and then on a week in and a week out basis, have opportunities for targeted instruction on those skills. So for example, by the end of the week, knowing exactly what progress they made and being able to work with a teacher or with a group of students on how do I make that next step of my learning? So the last thing I'll say, again, just sort of in the spirit of cooperation and our desire for connection, is both middle schools are working right now on a plan for how do we meaningfully transition our sixth graders into our school communities. We know that that's a unique need, and there will be more information coming out on that in the coming days, just so that you are aware that we are putting some intentional work towards that as well. So I am going to introduce Brett Willie and Jeanette Seamers next so that they can provide information about the high school. So thanks again for your time.
All right. Well, you guys see my screen okay there? All right. Well, my name is Brett Willie. I'm the high school principal here, and just want to welcome you this evening. So real quickly, as we talk about some of the things we're planning here at the high school and try to get to many of your questions that are coming in, you'll notice right off the get-go, the elephant in the room is your schedule is not 8 classes, it's 4. And that was something that really happened over the course of July with our district committee, our Monroe community coming together to really talk about the fall. Just the overwhelming evidence and discussion around how challenging it was for our students to manage 8 classes in a distance learning model. At one point last year in the spring, we had over 2,000 incompletes on the books ready to happen if some grading practices didn't shift. And that's a lot of students that struggled with that, and that was a lot of the feedback coming from families. Teachers struggled to keep up with that many classes, and we know, like statistically, we know what life looks like for kids that don't graduate. So really, kids are still getting 8 classes, we're just not having them take all of them at once. And so you'll see that our schedule is built around a 4-period day, and our staff, as hard as it was, knowing that this is going to cause other problems that we have to fix, our staff very quickly has got into, okay, how are we going to pull this off mode? And it's been really great to hear them think through and problem solve some of those things that we know are going to come up because of this shift. But 4 periods for 4 days a week, about 70 minutes. So really the time students spent learning these, in these classes is the same as spread out over the year. It's just condensed into a semester, which is challenging. But that gets back to Jonathan's point and the elementary school's point around being very clear about what are those essential skills that our students need. So our students will take 4 classes the first semester, and then we will switch to their other 4 classes second semester. You'll notice in our schedule here, we've built in quite a bit of targeted time for support for students on Friday, specifically Bearcat time. So that time this year is actually attached to a period, which will allow us to provide more targeted support for students in their learning. We've also have some afternoon time twice a week where teachers are available to work with students. It doesn't have to be students that struggle either. We may have some of our more advanced learners and AP students that really need some extra support to prepare for those assessments that they're going to take in the spring that we know that they really want to do a great job on. So this support time for Bearcat time and student teacher access time throughout the week is for not only students that need more time on certain essential standards, but for the students that want to advance and push themselves so that they're prepared. You'll notice we have on Friday some connection time for students. We've also built in some activity and extension and enrichment time for staff to collaborate. So we've really tried to structure this in a manner where we can provide opportunities for clubs to meet and try to maintain some of those things that we know are really important for high school. I will say I'm so grateful for this staff. I've actually offended several of them this summer when I reached out to them with different questions around this and said, hey, what do you think? I hope you're relaxing and enjoying your summer. And every one of them that I've talked to, they're not relaxing. They're preparing to do this well because this staff here at the high school wants to do a great job for your students this year and provide a quality education in this model. And to every staff member I've talked to has spent the summer getting ready for this. And so we're excited about rolling this out. I heard the term opportunity shared several times, and that's how we're viewing this as much as the challenges are going to be in front of us and the problems that we have to solve. It really is an opportunity for us to show our community our commitment to your students, our commitment to each other to work together to do a great job this year with Monroe High School education here. So I want to kick it over to Jeanette Seamers. We have also been thinking about, as the middle schools mentioned, how to transition our ninth graders. We know that's a big transition and a stressful one for kids as they enter high school. So she's going to briefly talk about some of the things we're planning as we transition our freshmen.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate that. I actually feel like I'm coming full circle. I feel like the last time I was on a webinar, I got to be the chief worrier of the class of 2020 and sending them off in an absolute amazing fashion. And now today I'm here getting to celebrate something near and dear to my heart, and that's welcoming our new ninth graders into our Bearcat family. I happen to have a ninth grader myself that's entering high school this fall. I'm looking at Jonathan Judy, and he does as well. I know that. And I'm mourning them kind of missing out on the traditional fall feel. And so we're going to go big. We're going to go Seamer style with this. And so our purpose is to make sure we're creating a safe space, relationship, and support for our ninth graders as they enter our Bearcat family. Some of the goals we've set for this ninth grade transition is an opportunity for them to build connection with each other and with our staff, their teachers, our administration team, and our support staff. And also to give them the tools they need to be successful. So some of the things we're looking at specifically for our ninth graders, we are doing a specific pickup time by classes, and the ninth graders will get something special included in theirs that's truly unique to them as ninth graders. In coordination with Ms. JJ and our associated student body and leadership heads, we are creating swag bags for our ninth graders. So they're going to have gear unique to being a ninth grader Bearcat at Monroe High School. We're excited about that. We also have our traditional Link Crew Orientation Day, which is September 8th. Right now, tentatively, that schedule looks like in the morning, our students will come and pick up their textbooks and their Chromebooks and their swag bags. And then they'll spend the afternoon with a welcome assembly geared just towards ninth graders. They'll get to meet their Link Crew mentor, which is an 11th or 12th grader who will be with them throughout the year and who is intently creating connection with them. We also have our Bearcat Academy class. All ninth graders will go through a quarter-long class to receive a half credit around what does it look like to be a Bearcat? What are our traditions? What is our culture about? How do you be successful? How do you learn social skills and organizational and study strategies for this? And so we're really super excited for this opportunity to welcome our ninth graders. Before I hand it off to Kim Whitworth, our Chief Academic Officer, I also want to just let folks know we will be having a Monroe High School specific webinar Monday night, August 31st, starting at 6:30, and that information will be coming out in our newsletter and be posted on our website. So we will be answering more in depth a lot of our high school level questions at that webinar. So thanks for this opportunity. We look forward to connecting with our ninth graders and all of you, and I'll pass it off to Kim Whitworth, our Chief Academic Officer, to talk about our virtual learning academy options.
Thank you, team. So families and students out there, I think you can see that Continuous Learning 2.0 is very different than Continuous Learning was in the spring. Our teachers and our school leaders, our school staff, our central office folks have really done an enormous amount of learning and work this summer to prepare for this. I hope it gives you the confidence to start the year online with us and then move into the hybrid model. But we do understand that there is some fear out there about sending your kids back to school too early. And some of you might choose a virtual learning, online learning process or a system instead. So we were very thorough and thoughtful about what online resource we were going to use. We worked with school and district leaders to identify a resource that would integrate with all of our systems, Canvas and Bright Bites and some of the other things that we have. We wanted something that had as many of the courses as we needed for K-12. There's some that were more robust for high school or middle school and not so much elementary. And we heard very clearly from you last spring that having multiple systems and platforms was really difficult when you had kids in multiple schools. We also wanted something that had a robust curriculum and assessments portfolio because we want something that really is going to be providing a teaching and learning experience that prepares kids for the next courses they're taking, the next classes they're taking, and for graduation and beyond. We really like the OSPI approved Florida virtual schools because we wanted resources that had rigorous content for all levels. It's NCAA accredited and allows us to differentiate for students in live learning situations and again through independent opportunities. Not all Monroe High School classes can be found on the Florida model, so we will also continue to offer some BYU classes. And for those of you who are in high school, you're already very familiar with that. So we'll have some options for you to continue with that. The other thing that we really liked about the Florida Virtual School is that it has a wide range of ways to use their resources, from using their learning management system, which for us is Canvas, but theirs is something different, their curriculum and their teachers, to using our learning management system, our teachers, and their curriculum. And we're trying to go to the latter. We want to make sure that we're maintaining those connections with you, with your students, and with the Monroe School District staff. So if we want to think about it this way, the hybrid model allows you to stay connected to your student's school with a whole cohort of students who are learning together through the time they're in the distance learning mode. And then when we can come back into our hybrid model, and then when we can come back full-time all together. So you're going to have that cohort of kids who are learning together throughout the day and throughout the week. The online model will still be a part of the Monroe School District and taught by Monroe School District teachers, but it may not be a teacher from your student's home school. This is really going to depend on where the students are who are requesting the virtual learning, online learning, and where the teachers are who are going to be offering and facilitating that learning. The daily schedule is a mix of synchronous learning, which is where they have contact, where you would have contact with their teacher and opportunities to engage with their peers. So that's kind of the live, not quite in person, but live. And this is very different than some of the other virtual learning platforms that we looked at, where online learning is fully independent with little to no support. And that was just not something that we felt was a good thing for kids and was a good thing for families. We still want to make sure that we're providing kids and students and families the support that they need as they're continuing with their learning. The Florida virtual school teachers are still going to be able to teach, to coach, to assess, and still be engaged with students as they are learning. And students will still be receiving feedback from their teachers in that model. The curriculum is provided by the Florida Virtual School, and we wanted to make sure that we had a resource that was rigorous for all levels, as I said before, and matched as closely as possible what we were already offering in our schools currently. Mid-year transitions is a question that has been coming up a lot, and we're still grappling with this. And I think Jeff put it beautifully, that we are committed to working with you and engaging with you and listening and trying to do what we can to accommodate your unique needs. We know we have some federal, state, and local policies and laws that we have to adhere to, and so we're keeping those in mind and trying to be flexible within those parameters. If a student who has signed up for the hybrid model chooses to stay home once we return from the distance learning model, we will need to have them sign up for the Florida Virtual Academy. Please know that we will be assisting and supporting you as you're making these decisions. We're going to continue to communicate with you throughout this time, giving you updates on where we're moving in that direction. We have amazing staff who really care about our students and who really care about our community, and we all really want this to work for our students. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to these amazing leaders and the work that they've been doing, and everything has been so student-centered. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Blasco so he can move to the Q&A.
Thank you all. We have been culling through the questions. A couple of them that have been coming through to us pretty loud and clear outside of this meeting and knowing coming into this meeting. One of the big ones out there is why the timeline to cause us to commit to our choice by tomorrow. So they're really, we're using the survey in order to assist us in our staffing process here in Monroe. So one of the things that is very different this year in this land of COVID is the processes that we have been relying on for decades for how to staff our classes, for how to build our classroom, how to separate kids into unique pods of learning throughout our buildings, has been pretty much turned on its head. So the information that we have on our end is incomplete, and that's the reason for the survey. We are using the survey to identify, one, our families that have responded to the survey. Our schools are, some of them have already begun this. We'll be reaching out to those who have not responded to the survey and we'll be determining what their choice is moving forward as well. That is another question that we've seen. What happens if I want to change my choice after this webinar, or I thought that I wanted to do this, now I've talked to my neighbors, I've talked to my kids, and I want to change my choice? Best thing for you to do is to contact your local school. And we have secretaries are in the office as of Tuesday of this week. They're answering phone calls, so give your school a call and they can work with you directly on that. Next, I think those were the two that I have. Canvas. We have a question. What the heck is Canvas? Canvas is a learning management system, and that is a place where teachers post lesson details. They put their syllabus information up there, lessons for the day, links to videos. It captures homework can be turned in, and most recently, my most recent experience with Canvas was with my daughter, who attended Everett Community College as a Running Start student. The reason that we selected Canvas years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, is because the majority of state schools in the state of Washington utilize Canvas as their learning management system. We felt it would be an advantage to Monroe students to be able to have the experience with Canvas in our schools. Initially, we were looking at high school when we made the selection 5 years ago. When they launched into continued academic pursuits, that it wouldn't be foreign to them, that they would have experience with the learning management system. Never in our wildest dreams 5 years ago did we think that we would be implementing Canvas K-12. Canvas is where your students and you will go to see what the lessons are. There will be videos posted up there, both videos that are identified from the internet and linked to the learning that's happening that day for that specific lesson, and videos that our teachers and our staff are making to assist our students in learning. That is an example of asynchronous. This webinar, for example, you are participating in this synchronously, and we are going to post this webinar onto our website so families that were not able to attend this webinar can access this asynchronously. Another vernacular piece that we're dealing with. Everything is starting online, with the exception of some of the things that David Parator talked about regarding some students that we know had difficulties working on the online within the online context, and he talked about those specific to student services. We are also worried about our homeless students. We are also worried about some of our students that receive enhanced educational experiences in our school system. Our language learners, students that obviously are supported through their individual education plans, students who are supported through LAP. Principal Presley talked about our learning assistance program. Those are students that could be struggling in specific academic areas of reading, writing, sometimes mathematics. We know, and we're following, and this is also a question that I've seen, how are you determining it's safe to come to school? We are following Department of Health guidelines, specifically Snohomish County Department of Health guidelines. The Department of Health in the state of Washington has developed a flow chart to identify when our health professionals in the state of Washington are confident that we can begin to bring small groups of students back in. There's a matrix for that. It's on our COVID website. There's links to those documents. You can take a look at our COVID page on our Monroe website to learn more about that spreadsheet, and that flow chart that's been developed by the Department of Health. And I have been involved with superintendents and school districts in Snohomish County for the past 6 weeks, meeting weekly with the Department of Health, Snohomish County Department of Health. This week we received good news that the numbers are dropping. So we're all doing our part, washing our hands, staying masked, socially distanced, not engaging in large group activities. And the case numbers have dropped below 75 this week. That's good. We need to continue that trend before Dr. Spitters, our Snohomish County Health lead, is confident that he will advise school districts to expand our consideration of bringing additional students in. This summer, and Principal Presley mentioned this summer we met with a group of educators and community members and worked on a hybrid option. At that time, numbers were low, less than 25 cases per 100,000, and we were on track to have a hybrid opening for schools. That shifted, and we've had to adjust now to move to online. When we are back at those levels, we intend to use the work that the committee created this summer. And one of those recommendations is specific to kindergarten and first grade. And so in addition to other groups, we're really, really focused on when it's safe, when we have guidance from the health department, to look at creating perhaps a more enhanced experience for our youngest learners that we know based on American Medical Association, we know that screen time for our youngest kids isn't the best modality for them to learn. I can tell you every person on this screen looking at you right now wants nothing more than to have our students back in school. But we need to do that underneath the structures and guidelines of the medical professionals who will determine if it's safe, and also following all of the industry's guidelines around labor and industries and our health professionals on what appropriate personal protective equipment, social distancing, and all of those pieces in place. David, there's a question about just the change in the educational structure, and should all IEPs be changed?
Yes, and I saw that question. That's a great question. And that's a question that we've really wrestled with in our county special education director group, as well as at the regional level. I also attended a webinar from the state, from OSPI, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, on this earlier this week. I think the easiest, best way to look at this is remember that IEPs are services and not a place. And so what we are being tasked with as far as OSPI is, if that IEP to you is a guarantee of the services that your children will receive, as well as the areas that will be addressed. So while the physical location has changed, so for example, the student is not receiving services at Salem Woods, but they're receiving the services at home, that setting at home is really essentially could be looked at as their general education setting, and this change that we're in. And then the special education services that are identified in the IEP, those are the pieces that your case manager will be working out with you. For those IEPs where a service is not able to be implemented for whatever reason, and this again, it's an individual basis, or if a specific goal is not being addressed, then the services would be considered to be changed, and so that they would have require an IEP amendment. And so that was the guidance that we were getting. And then that's why we want to communicate with you in those prior written notices that are part of the IEP process and part of the documentation that you're able to hold us accountable for. And I expect you to hold us accountable for providing these services and providing them with fidelity. So if we are saying that we are doing something and you are not receiving those services, please reach out to your case managers, reach out to your building administrators to try to get answers to your questions, and have those IEP meetings to discuss what this is looking like for your children, as well as if you are having a lot of difficulties and need to reach out to my office, please email me and I will respond to you. I will talk with you on the phone as far as problem solving, what this looks like for your kids. Is this perfect for your kids on IEPs? No, there's no way I can say that providing IEP services completely remotely is best practice. What we are doing is we are really adapting our service delivery to do the best for your children as we can. And that is our obligation. And that is my commitment to you, that we have really dedicated staff. And I was really floored by how creative our special education teachers and specialists were in spring, as far as being creative, really reaching out to families. And you can expect to continue to get those frequent communications from families to check in on how the services are going. We did learn we need to temper the amount that we were communicating to families, because during spring we were trying to communicate so much. Some families said, you need to stop communicating with us so much. So we're trying to find that fine line, and we learned a lot from March through June as far as what was working and what was not working. And I think you could definitely expect a lot of improvement in the services. But for certain situations, there will need to be IEP amendments. And we had those serious conversations with OSPI. Do we need to amend all 800 of our IEPs? And they were saying, if you're amending 800 IEPs, that means you're changing their services, and that's not okay. And so that would indicate more of a problem with what we were doing than fixing it. But I know we're going over our time now, so I don't want to take too much time on this, but I will also, I believe, I don't want to commit to this, but I think we're going to be also having some additional frequently asked questions, following there's lots of questions in this question board. So some of those, there's some additional IEP comments in there that I will look to give you more specific guidance. Again, it's really difficult to give one guidance for 800 different individualized education plans. And so really working with our staff to give kind of structures and parameters for our decision making. And we have great staff on board. We were able to retain almost all of our special education teachers this year. So we have a lot of consistency within all of our buildings. So our services are only going to continue to get better. And in addition to the special education services, it's also our commitment that our students and IEPs are going to continue to get increased access to that general education curriculum, which is really vital. And the last 5 years of having more inclusive services, we're really seeing improved learning for our kids on IEPs.
Thank you, David. I have question number 7. This is Kim Whitworth, Chief Academic Officer. And the question is, parent of incoming 6th grader, is it accurate to assume that the Monroe School District distance learning involves multiple teachers versus virtual learning academy, which involves only one? Our elementary teachers go through education and training where they are certificated to teach reading, writing, math, science, pretty much everything. It's really amazing to watch, some of our elementary teachers. Once we get into the secondary level, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, we're looking at more subject matter specialists. So they have certain certificates that have endorsements in specific areas. So your child will have more than one teacher at that level. We're sitting here, we've been kind of thinking, we have some teachers who have maybe a K-12, and we might be able to reduce some of the teachers, the number of teachers that kids will have, but that's not something that we can guarantee. So if you've got a kiddo going into middle school and high school, you can expect that with the virtual learning as well as the hybrid or MSD distance learning, they're going to have more than one teacher.
I see one here for elementary. It says, at elementary, my student will only see their teacher for 1 hour a day. No, your child will see their teacher for morning meeting time, and at the end of the day, just that alone, the beginning and end of the day is almost an hour and a half. And then during the day, especially in the morning, where you have your 3 big content areas of reading, writing, and math, teachers will be with students in small groups. Also remember, we do have other staff members who will also be with your child in small groups as well. And then your child will be able to access, and it says see their teacher. They may see them a little bit on video, but the live time that they would be with them would be not only in the morning, but they can always see them during the flexible access time, and they can see them during that family contact time as well. Also during choice activities, when we do clubs, we're looking at doing clubs a couple of days a week, and you'll see staff members who will be doing that. They may actually have, it may be their general ed classroom teacher, it may be someone else who has an interest in the same thing that your child likes. Maybe that club is cooking, maybe it's student council, maybe that club is art. So there's going to be lots of it. Maybe it's a writing club or a newspaper. So there's going to be clubs that are set up as well. Again, that's that time that we're looking at kids driving some of that learning, and the teachers helping to be there to guide them. So no, your child will see their classroom teacher multiple times during the day. It won't be one long stretch though. Even though it says live instruction, they're not going to meet from 9:45 to 12 with their whole class, but they will see their teacher in pieces of that time. as well as other times throughout the day, and then again at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day.
All right, we're going to take a couple of more questions. We appreciate you hanging on with us. We planned for an hour. We had a little bit of a clunky start there at the beginning, so we've gone a little bit over our time, but we're going to take a couple more questions. Question for me is around Chromebooks. The question asks that their student needs a Chromebook, and we know that we have a number of students. We have new kindergarten students coming in. We have people that have moved into our region. We have families that didn't get a Chromebook last spring that, in thinking about it for this fall, realize I think everybody needs a Chromebook in this house, and so we know that. The question, one part of the question is, are we a one-to-one district? We have not been a one-to-one district. However, with the generous support of our community in our tech levy, which is expiring this next year, and so we're looking at how to continue these advanced services that we have for technology. We have enough Chromebooks in our district, we believe, to support our students with the needs for Chromebooks. I got to give a shout out to Keith Welton. Keith is running our Zoom. He's got a fantastic crew of technology team in our district. They did a marvelous job in the spring of getting Chromebooks to kids. More information will be out soon. We are looking at a transition time frame starting in September 9th. We are still in negotiations with our teachers union, as this is a shift in practice, and in the state of Washington, we are bound to bargain the effects of shifts in working environments, and we're in the middle of that. But one of the big concepts that we've had in those discussions is around relationships. We understand the glue, the foundation of education is the relationship that exists between our students and our teachers, and we know how important that is. In that time frame, we also know that we have to get materials. If you're thinking about middle school with Jonathan Judy out there at Hidden River, kids are going to need to get materials from their teachers and their courses. Same thing at the high school, a lesser extent to the elementary, but we have plans for that as well. And so we're looking at transition timing. We're not sure if that's going to be the first 3 days, if that's going to be 8 days, what that's looking like. Again, we're still in negotiations on that. But our teachers understand, and they know, and the teachers that are here in Monroe care and love for your kids. And so that's a big part of that, and we're gonna use that time to get Chromebooks in the hands of kids. We know that's coming up, and we're also going to look at other situations where potentially there will be Chromebooks at schools that you'll be able to go to your child's school and pick up some Chromebooks. We had that system in place at the end of last year as well. So that's a question on Chromebook. We're going to take one more, and Kim, that question is for you.
Thank you, Dr. Blasco. The last question here is, if my child is signed up for a virtual learning program and we want to switch mid-year, can we? We're going through right now and trying to problem solve a number of things. When would that happen? And I think what we're looking at is at the quarters, we would be able to transition some kids in there. We're also trying to answer the question, what do we do with a kiddo who's transferring in, who's already missed some of the relationship building and some of the learning that's happening that might be a prerequisite first coming in? What I can tell you is that we are guaranteed to working with all of our families to make sure that we are meeting the needs of kids. And the transition might be a little wonky as we're going from online with a different curriculum to back in with our Monroe School District teachers and students, but we are committed to making that work for you.
Again, I'd like to thank all of you. At one point, I think we were approaching over 560 participants. Thank you for those of you that have hung on. Another question that has come up throughout this is working parents. We are collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, and other child care facilities in Monroe. We are looking of how to support that. We've heard other school districts and some of the creative ways that they are working with that. And we have meetings with YMCA and Boys and Girls Club coming up here soon to talk about the best way for us to support students that are going to be in childcare during the day, and how, as an educational system, can we support them while they're in the care of others, while those of you that are working families and are getting back to work and keeping that economy going. We know that is a part that we will have to play in supporting your students as well as all of our students. You've heard that from all of my staff members on this screen, and know I see dozens and dozens of names of our teachers and principals in this in this panel or in the attendees as well. Again, we're here for your kids. That's why we're teachers. That's why we're educators. That's why we're here in Monroe. If your question didn't get answered, again, we are collecting these questions. We are building out our FAQs to identify those thematic questions that continue to come up. You heard Principal Presley, you heard Principal Judy. Contact your school. That goes for all of our schools. Our office staff is back in play. If they don't have the answer to the question, they're reaching out to us at central office. We want to assure you that, again, we're building this plane as we're flying it. But the intention, the focus is to meet the needs of your students at this time. We know that what happened in the spring can't happen now. And we're going to be a lot more intentional about assuring that students are learning, working with them. Saw a lot of questions about, hey, you know, there were some problems in the spring. How do we respond to that? And those are things that our principals, we've been talking about that. What's the best way for parents to advocate if there is an issue? How do we address that issue quickly? Let's see, I'm making sure that I'm not missing anything. Our website, our district website has a COVID-19 page. Lots and lots of information, including some of you have very specific questions about safety. And again, in this global pandemic, all of us are concerned about safety. We've implemented labor and industry standards for our staff that are working in buildings. Now we have plans for how that will work. We will have an attestation that will be available to families to attest that your student, and when we get to the point that we can bring students back, that your student is symptomatic free. And there is an app that you will be able to do that. Or if we don't have an attestation on the app for particular students, we will be screening students coming into school. That's down the road. We're starting online, but I know that was a question out there. Again, we thank you for being a part of this. I think David said it best. We know this isn't perfect. This isn't how I wanted to start my superintendency. I wish that I could see you all. I wish that we were in 3 dimension rather than in this dimension. And I look forward to that opportunity to getting to know you and getting to meet you and getting to serve your families here in Monroe. We are dedicated to the success of each of our students and have continued to drive with that goal in mind and that purpose as we've made these plans. And we're going to continue to learn and grow and adapt these plans as we are experienced and continue to experience these plans. So it's going to be a little bit flexible. It's going to be a little bit. I think as well as we can get started, that's what our plan is. And then to learn from that and adjust from that and meet the needs of our kids as we continue to learn and grow with you in this modality. Thank you for supporting the Monroe School District. We appreciate you being a part of this webinar, and we look forward to continue to communicate to you and to get our kids served online, hopefully move to the hybrid model, and then again, I can't wait until we have all of our kids back in school when it's safe to do so. Thank you again for being here, and we will see you soon. Thank you.